In response to those who point out that it feels hypocritical to now defend Trump's decision not to debate, Kari Lake writing, quote, "Why would President Trump sit at the kids' table when he already had a seat at the biggest table in the world? He has nothing to prove. I'm more interested in watching him talk about solutions with Tucker Carlson than him being attacked by the JV debate team." Lake said today she will figure out how to get into the spin room.
Did you cancel your trip to Milwaukee now that they tell you that Trump surrogates are not welcome? Because if I know Kari Lake, she's going to be defiant here. I imagine, and I'm just guessing, this is me just like a Babe Ruth point, I bet you're going to try to walk in that spin room anyway. Tell us.
Well, I'm sitting here in Milwaukee right now, so that should answer your question. I will be at the debate. And I plan to be in the spin room as well. It is a free country, and I think people need to hear from people in the America First movement.
Gotta love those objective journalists. The Babe Ruth, your Babe Ruth, Kari Lake. Presumably, she would try to get in as a guest of another news organization. Another Trump surrogate, Representative Byron Donalds of Florida, put it best last year when he was criticizing now Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania for not initially agreeing to debate his Republican rival, Dr. Oz. Quote, "Voters deserve to see the debates. The debate of ideas is part of the job." And in reference to Donald's own presence on a climate emergency panel last year, he said, quote, "The only way to change people's minds is to engage in healthy debate." So Byron Donalds and Kari Lake both said a debate is effectively part of the job, are now going to be up there defending the former president for his refusal to debate, while his surrogates try to talk their way to post-debate spin room on the credentials of other news organizations. Back with me, NewsNation political contributors Sean Spicer, former press secretary under President Trump, and John Ziegler, conservative commentator, host of the Death of Journalism podcast. John, does this make a difference that there is a seeming hypocrisy here? I would think Kari Lake and Byron Donalds will be out there. I don't know that, is it going to matter a lot that they've made these comments in the past?
Well, Dan, first of all, I wonder if Sean Hannity will have any of these people on the debate on Fox News Channel.
Yeah.
I'm going to guess that Sean Hannity will be happy to have anybody who was pro-Trump on his show. Look, the reality here is that hypocrisy has never been a hindrance for a Trump surrogate. It's been a job description. It's been part of what you're supposed to do and be. Past statements mean nothing. And I really wish you would have added the comments of Vivek Ramaswamy, who was going to be on that stage as a Trump surrogate, who in the past has also completely trashed Donald Trump for the idea that he might not take the debate stage. And now suddenly that he's not taking the debate stage and said, oh, this is perfectly fine. I understand it, because he is, too, a Trump surrogate.
Yeah, well, again, I guess the difference is that I'm not calling him a Trump surrogate. He is a candidate. And so that makes it different than I'm talking about the actual folks who are being sent there to do Donald Trump's bidding. But Sean Spicer, it's going to be a very effective thing. I mean, the media, particularly the right-leaning media, is going to welcome, I would assume, a lot of these high-profile surrogates to come on and effectively retort as a result after the debate.
Yeah, let me just say two things. I get your point, but I will say there's a big difference in a general election debate or when it's a binary choice. If Trump said that he was skipping every debate, I think that would be an unwise decision, and B, I'd see the hypocrisy there. But skipping the first one when you're 40-something points up, I agree.
It's not him.
As I said earlier,
let me be clear. Wait. I'm not saying Trump's being hypocritical. I'm saying that the Kari Lakes and the Byron Donalds.
I get that.
Okay. Yeah.
Right, but my point is that what Kari Lake and Byron Donalds were talking about is a general election debate, a binary decision between a Republican and a Democrat. I think if Trump said he wasn't going to debate Biden and he was the nominee, I would disagree with that. I don't think it's good for our democracy. I don't think it's good for transparency. But I think a primary debate with a bunch of people that have to wear name tags when you were previously the nominee twice, I would strategically say regardless of the candidate. Secondly, to the other point, listen, Trump's chosen not to be here. And that's his choice. But I do agree that if they don't want to come, if he doesn't want to be here, then his surrogates can't go into a spin room. They are free to be here in Milwaukee, as Kari Lake said. They can go talk to anyone who wants to engage with them on the streets of Milwaukee or conduct any interview. But I think it's right. If you're not going to play in the game, you don't get to sit on the field.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your cable provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.